For a year, Israel has relentlessly hunted those members of Hamas responsible for the October 7th attack, swore they would pay. Now, they say, is the beginning of the end, because the leader of Hamas is dead. This unverified drone footage was posted online by an IDF spokesperson. It shows a heavily damaged building, all but hollowed out. Not far inside, a man sits in an armchair, unmoving, frozen in time, staring back at the drone staring at him. The drone approaches, and it's only well after this encounter the IDF would claim this is the man they've been looking for. He has what appears to be a plank of wood in his hands. Hard to tell exactly what it is. But the stare down continues, and it's unclear what either side is planning to do next. But then we see that object in Sinwar's hands raised slightly. He hurls it at the drone, and then, very abruptly, the video ends, leaving it an open question. What exactly happened next? This video has been edited by the IDF. We can see the cuts, the red highlights added in post. But it is, by their account, the final moment of Yahya Sinwar's life before he was killed. And what is striking about the video is not what it shows, but rather everything that led up to that moment.
Today, the mastermind of this day of sheer evil is no more. Yahya Sinwar is dead.
Sitting alone, no allies in sight, seemingly without much capacity to fight back, at least in that moment, is not how anyone expected the hunt for the leader of Hamas to end. He had continually managed to escape those who wanted him dead. The IDF posted this unverified video in February. A group of people, including children believed to be family members, and highlighted right here in red what the IDF claims is the first sighting of Sinwar since the October 7th attacks, making his way through a pitch-black tunnel lit only by the lights they carry. At the time, the IDF swore, "We will not stop until he is captured, dead or alive." But Sinwar did everything he could to avoid that, perhaps because he knew what it was like to be in Israeli captivity. He was imprisoned in Israel in 1988 for the murders of 4 Palestinians, whom he accused of betrayal, collaborators with Israel, enemies of Hamas. He would go on to earn the nickname the Butcher of Khan Yunis for his relentless pursuit of perceived traitors in his midst. He spent more than 20 years behind bars. When he was released as part of a prisoner swap in 2011,
after more than 5 years, Israeli soldier Gilad Shalit is home with his family tonight, but his was not the only homecoming.
1,027 Palestinian and Israeli Arab prisoners in exchange for a single Israeli soldier. He returned to his life in Gaza, the place he was born, in a refugee camp, immediately moving up the ranks of Hamas.
The prisoner swap has elevated the standing of the Al-Qassam fighters in Gaza, and with it, leaders like Yahya Sinwar. They are being honoured in parades organised by Hamas.
By 2015, 4 years after his release, he was branded a global terrorist by the United States and the European Union. A year and a half after that, he was elected the head of Hamas's political bureau. Israel has called Sinwar the face of evil. They believe he masterminded the October 7th attack, which killed more than 1,200 Israelis, mostly civilians, while taking well over 200 hostages into Gaza. 101 are still believed to be there. The great irony here is that for all of Israel's efforts to track Sinwar, the man they branded as public enemy #1, that American media vilified as a violent megalomaniac, someone who got what he deserved, and that the US Secretary of State calls a vicious and unrepentant terrorist. After all that, reports suggest the IDF stumbled onto him by chance. They say one of their brigades in Rafah, Gaza's south, was on a simple patrol. They came under fire. They fought back. Their attackers fled, splitting up, ultimately killed. This video we showed you earlier, it was apparently shot in the midst of that firefight. And when it was all over, Israeli troops didn't even bother checking the bodies until the next day because the whole encounter had seemed so unremarkable to them. This man's face is covered, after all. You can't tell just by looking who it is. But when soldiers returned and they saw his face, they scrambled to confirm what they very likely could hardly believe. Sinwar's time in Israeli captivity gave them access to his DNA, dental records, biometrics, which they could then use to claim that this was indeed him. In the end, the IDF says he was found with a gun, cash, and judging by unverified pictures widely circulated on social media, a giant hole in his head. We won't show you those pictures. They're too gruesome, and we can't confirm if they're real, though CNN's photo authentication desk has apparently studied the photos and found no evidence of manipulation. So what now?
While this is not the end of the war in Gaza, it's the beginning of the end.
It is the hope of the United States that the death of Hamas's leader opens up a window of opportunity for a ceasefire. That between this and other assassinations of high-profile Hamas commanders, the flooding and destruction of Hamas tunnels, the demolition of key infrastructure, the deaths of at least 40,000 Palestinians, according to their health authority, that perhaps this might be a reason for Israel to halt its retaliation. But it might not be.
This war can end tomorrow. It can end if Hamas lays down its arms and returns our hostages.
There is no clearly defined endpoint for this war. Israel has stated repeatedly the return of its hostages is not enough, and the unconditional surrender of Hamas has not at any point seemed likely. So we are left with the death of yet another leader, punctuated by a threat from Israel against those who would harm Israeli citizens.
Israel will hunt you down and bring you to justice.